so much for taking the time to meet with me, Rabbi. Please tell us your full name, the job you currently hold, and a little bit about how you came to occupy that position.
My name is Rabbi Mel Gottlieb, and I'm currently the president of the Academy for Jewish Religion, California, also the dean of its rabbinical school and its chaplaincy program. I came to this position about 10 years ago because I was invited to teach, and the vision and values of the school were commensurate with my soul's journey, because it was a trans-denominational school which wanted to promote unity amongst the different denominations. It was textually based, and it had a spiritual dimension that's essential for where my talents lie. I'm a therapist as well as a rabbi, so I always like to engage with a psycho-spiritual journey of students and human beings to help them become elevated to their destinies and to reach their potential.
Please tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, and your family of origin.
I grew up in New York City, in Manhattan, the Lower East Side. My family was Orthodox. My grandparents were very Orthodox, and I grew up in a yeshiva environment with Rav Moshe Feinstein, MTJ. He was the big legalistic decisor of the generation, the halachic authority, and a very spiritual figure. So he had a lot of influence on me. My grandfather also was very spiritual. He was a Torah reader for 30 years at that yeshiva.
Why did you leave an Orthodox environment?
I grew up in a way where I always had a universal feeling for people, though part of my family was Orthodox, part of my family was not, and I loved both of them equally. And some of the messages in the yeshiva, the Orthodox yeshiva, where only the observant should be honored, didn't resonate with my experience. But I remained Orthodox in practice for most of my life. I went up to Yeshiva University, and it was when I graduated and I went to social work school, and I began to understand the importance of affirming one's feelings and being authentic and having integrity. And I had ideas that were sometimes different than the Orthodox teaching, so I began to explore new ways of being Jewish and new ways of being spiritual in the world.
What does trans-denominational mean, and why is that important to you?
You know, my first job was as a Hillel director at MIT and in Princeton, and there I had the responsibility to work with all denominations, with Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Jews, and non-affiliated, and I realized that each denomination had something very valuable to contribute, and I didn't want to feel limited to one denomination. A Hillel director really has to be pretty universal. That's why I also shifted from solely being Orthodox. So trans-denominational means the ability to affirm all the denominations, to value what they bring, but also not to be locked into one denomination, and also to have the ability to serve those who are not affiliated with any denominations, which is the majority of the Jewish community. So trans-denominational means the desire to reach to all Jews, that we're all a Jewish community, and making that most important, no matter what denomination.
What does psycho-spiritual mean?
Psycho-spiritual means the ability to not just look at the objective facts and situations or just master texts, but also see what the texts, how they speak to your soul, how they speak to your inner life, and how they enhance your consciousness, your awareness, your psychological acumen, and how it touches something beyond the mind, but the heart, the spiritual dimension that each of us contain.
What is the mission of the Academy for Jewish Religion?
The mission is to do outreach to all Jews, to promote harmony between the denominations, to allow people to master Jewish texts, to become scholarly, but mainly also to be an environment that's spiritual, meaning that some of the courses we offer, Hasidism, Musar, we have spiritual development groups every week. There's an attempt to create a spiritual environment in a rabbinical chaplaincy cantorial school that transcends just an academic environment.
Why do we need an interdenominational seminary? What's inadequate about having three major denominations?
Because then you have a split that generally the graduates of each of those schools have an affiliation and a loyalty to the values of that particular denomination, and sometimes it loses a larger picture of connection to the Jewish community as a whole and imbibing the strengths of each of the other denominations. So it creates a mentality of a fragmentization somewhat, and
What?
fragmentation, and therefore we wanted to create a seminary which would try to look at the Jewish people as a whole and just extract the best from the tradition from any part of any denomination.
How can one reconcile the conflict in ideas between the various branches of Judaism? For instance, in Orthodoxy, how there is no need for public worship for women. They're even excluded from public worship. Whereas in conservative or reform, women are welcomed to bless the Torah publicly and even read from the Torah.
In certain areas there is no reconciliation, but what needs to happen is to have a respect for the integrity and sincere motives of the other groups. Pluralism doesn't mean agreeing with the other all the time, but it means at least respecting and trying to understand their point of view and hopefully have them respect you and you respect each other. I don't think there will ever be any reconciliation about certain practices and beliefs.
What's most important for us to know about Hillel? All of us who went to college in the United States have been introduced to Hillel in one way or another, but what's most important for us to know about it?
Well, Hillel as a person was a very tolerant, loving person. He's famous for example, when a potential convert came to Shammai and asked him to convert to Judaism, he kind of discouraged him and questioned his motivation. Whereas as soon as he came to Hillel said, "Well, there's just one thing that you have to do, and that is." He came to him and he said, "Teach me the whole Torah on one foot." So Shammai felt, he wasn't serious and he dismissed him. And Hillel said, "What is hateful unto you, don't do to your fellow human being. There's the whole Torah. Go out and study it." So he was always he represents tolerance. Hillel on the college campus also represents pluralism and tolerance for all the denominations, just helping them come closer to Judaism in the way that which is palatable to them. I think it's a very fine, important institution for the Jewish community. The students have to meet a lot of potential clashes with what they're grown up with in a very sophisticated way, and you need something to counteract that on campus.
You told me before I started recording that you're here in Las Vegas to do interfaith work. Can you please tell us about that?
Yes. The Academy for Jewish Religion California is not only a trans-denominational rabbinical cantorial chaplaincy seminary, but it also, in 2010, entered a consortium with Claremont School of Theology and the Islamic Center of Southern California, when we created the first desegregated religious training seminary in the United States called Claremont Lincoln University, CLU, based on a $50 million grant that David Lincoln bestowed upon us. The philosophy of it is for each group to maintain its own traditions and to train people the same way they were training them, except to add on courses that students can take in various religions, that a person, a clergy leader in the 21st century, should be able to know the other religions, not to stereotype them, not to be suspicious of them, but to learn about them so the clergy leader in an interconnected world can intelligently enter the other world and teach about our own tradition. Because religion today is stereotyped as a negative force, as a fundamentalist versus progressives fighting because of feeling threatened. And we want to once more portray religion as a progressive, loving entity in this world, and the primary values of each religion are really the same: to elevate the earth, tikkun olam, to allow people to reach their destinies, to find a love for the Creator, and to love your fellow human being. So this is the kind of work we engage in addition to our Jewish studies, to promote harmony between the different religions and to have that image be born into the world.
You just said the words Tikkun Olam. What does that mean?
Tikkun Olam means to repair the world, to work for social justice, to help the oppressed. Wherever you see something you can do of service to improve the world, to elevate it, that you enter into it and do your task there.
I asked that same question of a Chabadnik, and his response was, it only means tshuva, only means repentance for a secular Jew to become observant. Any other application was not correct, he said. What do you think of that thought?
I disagree with that. I don't think that's the common understanding of tikkun. Tikkun means to build, to repair. Olam means the world. So just simply from the translation of that phrase, it means going out and doing something uplifting in the world. And that's the way it is generally understood in common parlance. So the Chabadnik, I think, has a misimpression of it.
You have an Orthodox ordination, and have worked at 2 conservative and 1 Orthodox congregation. Can you tell us where your heart lies as regards the various movements?
I love the positive dimensions in each of the movements. Like some of my colleagues, we sometimes have a split between our intellect and our hearts. My heart, I think, is in the Orthodox movement because I grew up there and is what I'm used to, and I like the kavanah, the intensity of the prayer, and the communal feeling of responsibility and commitment. But intellectually, some of the beliefs and some of the emphases do not resonate with my mind, so my mind prefers sometimes some of the philosophies found in the conservative movement, which is tradition and change, living more in the present and moving the halacha along to because new conditions have been created. So there's a little bit more flexibility, dynamism, and creativity that's available there. So, but I wouldn't say I dislike any of them. They each have their place. I just don't like to be boxed into one because I don't feel totally at one with either of them.
So if I dropped you in any town with a significant Jewish community, Sacramento, Philadelphia, wherever, someplace with a significant community, but you don't really know anybody, what kind of congregation would you seek out? It's Friday afternoon, you're getting ready for Shabbat. Who would you seek out?
If I want to really dive in intensely, I might go to an Orthodox shul, I would have to get to know each of the shuls to see which I would feel most comfortable. My experience has been that sometimes the conservative prayer experience is not as intense as the Orthodox one. When I come to pray, I want intensity. If you ask me which lecture would I like to go to, or which drasha, it could be that I may prefer a non-Orthodox synagogue.
What was the first service project in your life that you remember being involved in?
When I was young, we used to deliver packages of food to people who couldn't afford food, the social service projects in Lower East Side.